How am I supposed to just suddenly pretend to scream in agony?
I don't know. Remember when you got halfway through Piers Morgan's memoirs? Just call them some of that.
Welcome to episode 31 of the Jonathan Creek podcast, where I don't think we will need to be summoning up any Piers Morgan to have our ire raised with this episode.
There's enough horrors without bringing that into it.
In fairness, there are touches sprinkled throughout, that I did enjoy.
Yeah, bits and pieces.
Yeah. I have to say, this episode to me was like a poor man's Columbo.
You think?
Well, in the sense that you saw the murder up front.
Right, okay, I understand, yeah.
But unfortunately, there was no cat and mouse.
No, it wasn't much of a chase.
Wasn't much of anything, really.
No. Is it true that you've read Piers Morgan's memoirs?
I only got halfway through.
Understandable.
What did you think of it?
Well, I thought that the writing was poor and in general his life story was uninteresting.
Mm-hmm. This episode?
It had its moments, but I would say it's probably not one of the better episodes that we've had.
Interestingly, it's the lowest rated on IMDb for what that's worth. I think the show generally has about an 8.2 rating.
Okay.
This is at a 5.9.
Oh, I didn't think it was quite that bad.
No, it was entertaining.
6.5 maybe.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, it has some plus points.
Yeah, I mean, it replaces the lack of a good mystery with lots of bad ones.
Yeah. We should discuss that.
We will. That's the purpose of our entire podcast.
Okay, do you have a summary?
I do.
Crack on.
In the Letters of Septimus Noone, the death of Polly's father and an impossible attack on a West End leading lady lead to a series of curious puzzles. With his wife keen for him to leave amateur detective work behind and remain grounded in the real world, can Jonathan solve a plethora of mysteries? Or is it time to step back and let the next generation take centre stage?
Thank you, Ian. We begin this week in the West End.
Yeah, there's no cold open this week. We go straight into the credits. It's not something you can ever predict with Jonathan Creek. Is there going to be a cold open or not? There's certainly not any kind of a trope or system to it.
Jonathan and Polly are watching a musical mystery, although he is rightly more annoyed with the phone-obsessed patron.
Yeah, I think this is obviously the early-ish days of video camera phones, and you wouldn't get away with that now.
No, but you also wouldn't get away with him physically trying to prevent him doing it.
No, you can't touch another person.
No, we shouldn't really.
No.
I mean,
still,
it's a bit harsh.
Yeah, it's not really his place to enforce copyright infringement, but I think he just found it annoying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There are lots of things that you find annoying, but you can't.
Yeah, you can't physically intervene. No, I think that's fair enough. He could have blocked the view of the camera, though, put his hand up or something.
All ends in a bit of a fight.
Quite a big one.
Yes, because backstage, we hear Polly reprimand him, and we see that he has come off probably for the worse with a neck bite and a black eye.
Yeah, I don't think he anticipated the man going for the jugular, literally.
No, and again, I'm not suggesting you should be a grass, but if someone bites your neck, then I'm calling the police.
Yeah, I think I would.
Or you know, unless you're in a position where you can physically dish out some retribution. Jonathan obviously isn't the type, but you need to go to the hospital as well. If someone bites you, at the very least you want a tetanus.
Yeah, but I think Polly wants them to concentrate on this meeting and not miss their appointment with Zelda.
But that doesn't make much sense either, because if you've got a high-profile client meeting...
You don't be spilling blood everywhere.
No, you don't turn up with someone with a bite mark and a black eye.
I liked Jonathan's remark that the seats were so expensive at £60. That's probably about the price of the cheap seats in the West End nowadays.
I'd say so, yeah. Yeah, this Zelda that you mentioned is the producer of the play, which is based on a classic locked room story, which I believe is accurate.
A real one, yes. Mm-hmm. Jonathan gives you the details. You don't need us to repeat that.
No, he's not impressed with this lowbrow version, but Polly is only interested in winning the marketing account. Yeah,
she and Zelda, who I presume is French, speak in French about Jonathan's wounds, which is a bit unfortunate for him because he's no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and on the way to her office, they meet the two leads who are clearly unhappy with some technical aspects of the show.
Yeah, I think the boat doesn't work, so they're walking on water.
In any case, Zelda invites them back tomorrow to see the show in all its glory, but Polly informs her and reminds Jonathan that they have lunch with someone called Sharon and her 8-year-old. And her 8-year-old pony.
The new pony, yes.
So we next see the leading lady, who I think her name's Juno Pirelli.
Juno, yes.
She picks up some post from the meal desk or the reception desk backstage from a clerk called Angus.
Angus, that's correct.
And as she leaves, we've seen this a few times in Jonathan Creek, someone is given a lingering stare.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's looking at her. I think we're made to think that.
Yeah, we can chat about this. I disagree.
He has things on his mind.
Yeah, but still.
I don't think he's got any interest in her whatsoever. In fact, I think that's the whole point of his storyline.
Yeah, I read it differently from yourself then. And we can chat about that.
Yeah.
And we meet up with Angus next.
Yeah, back at his house. He's arrived home from a night at the theatre, and he
creeps.
Yeah, he tries to be quiet in case his partner's asleep.
Well, sort of.
And then he wakes her up.
He does. And ends up quite aggressively and perhaps inconsiderately pleasuring her.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she's feeling much pleasure because she brings it to an abrupt halt.
Why?
She accuses him of having somebody else on his mind. But I don't think he does.
I think he might.
No, definitely doesn't.
Okay.
Anyway, he looks concerned as she leaves. He denies, obviously, what she's saying, and then she gets up and leaves, and he looks a bit concerned.
Yeah, she calls it a sickness, I think.
Yes.
Quite extreme.
Over at Sharon's, Jonathan and Ripley are riding horses.
They are, odd name for a kid. Anyway, he is wearing a ridiculously oversized helmet. That annoyed me.
He looks stupid.
Very stupid. He doesn't suit a horse. He's no cowboy.
No. He rides it rather less well than maybe another horse would.
Yeah, very good. In front of them, we hear Polly tell Sharon that she feels that she and Jonathan are ready to move into the country.
Yeah, they're certainly thinking of moving generally, and we go from that fact, which Sharon doesn't really comment on, to a bizarre tale of the distress caused to Ripley by the death of her imaginary friend the week before.
Okay, talk us through this.
Okay, so Ripley obviously has an active imagination. I don't know if she's meant to have a autistic spectrum condition. It's not really delved into. All we hear is that she's got an active imagination and takes things literally. So she had an imaginary friend, but unfortunately, a few days prior to this visit, the friend was killed by a dragon, burned to death, and Ripley described the melting flesh and disintegrating eyeballs and everything else, and seemed to have been quite upset by it.
Yeah. Sharon then quickly changes the subject again to tell Polly that Ridley, I think it's her son, will be joining them for the weekend.
Yeah, is this the point where Jonathan comments on knowing what her favourite film must be? If it's not here, it's soon.
It's a little bit later in the scene. Yeah.
Obviously, Ripley and Ridley kind of gives it away.
The duelists.
That's it.
Ridley is back from his criminology course at university, and Sharon mentions how fantastic he is at working out things from tiny pieces of evidence. I immediately noted that he's going to be a dick, but I think that's perhaps not entirely fair.
It's not entirely fair, and I think his mother's maybe worse than he is in terms of speaking to other people.
Without a doubt, yeah.
She does express at this stage that he's looking forward to spending time with Jonathan, which upsets Polly.
Yes. Ridley wants to become a forensic detective.
Yeah.
And Sharon thinks that shadowing Jonathan might be useful, but as we've discussed, Polly wants to deny, in a very civil faulty way, Jonathan from doing what he enjoys.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a control thing or what it is, but she certainly has a bee in her bonnet about this activity that he clearly enjoys and is good at.
Yeah.
She wants him to live in the real world, but that doesn't make sense because these problems exist in the real world.
Yeah, it's not a fantasy.
No. In fact, his entire basis for work is grounded in things being based in the real world.
Yeah.
Anyway, at this point we hear a scream from young Ripley.
Yeah, she runs it towards him and claims that Jonathan has cut the head off her pony. And even after he explains what's happened, it would seem that Sharon is a less than understanding whack job.
Yeah, her reaction is deeply unreasonable.
What happened in the first place?
He's taken a photo which he's cropped out the pony's head by mistake, and he's told or shown Ripley this, and she's assumed he's being literal when he said he chopped the head off the pony. I mean, for a moment I hope maybe he was being literal. That would be an interesting twist. But no.
And Sharon doesn't apologise for Ripley's overreaction.
No, well, Ripley maybe isn't responsible for her behaviour if she's got a condition of some kind, but Sharon, first of all, should have explained to Jonathan and Polly that this might happen and to be careful. And secondly, should not be chastising someone who didn't understand that this might happen for triggering
And merely
an event.
took a bad photograph.
Yeah, and explained it in a normal way. He's dumbfounded.
Yeah, I think at this point, when Sharon runs off to get Ripley, this is when Jonathan mentions Ridley and Ripley.
Yeah.
We're back at the theatre, where the leads are rehearsing, but they're still having some technical problems that cause Juno to vomit into the orchestra pit.
Right into the tuba.
Yeah.
That made me nauseous. Imagine playing a tuba and then vomit comes down the other way.
If Columbo was playing it in a waltz, perhaps.
That would be horrific for him. He
Yeah.
would not be happy.
In the wings, she claims that it's her fault. I think she's got a bit of a complex about herself.
Yeah, well, she's read something in the ladies' toilets that's upset her.
Yeah, she believes herself to be a dreadful actress after having some terrible reviews. But Daryl, one of the, I think he's makeup,
Yeah.
he tries to comfort her before Angus hands her some water and again appears to stare quite longingly
I don't think
after her.
he's staring longingly. He just looks generally concerned.
Yeah, maybe not all the time he's doing that.
I think he's got this constant worry about Rachel because she's acting weird and
Okay.
is unwell.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, no, but I think that's what these looks in his face are. And we see why he might be concerned, because back at the house she is rifling through his memorabilia and stuff and finds a dedication in a theatre programme to him from Juno, which upsets her.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre thing for Juno to write on the programme to start with. All my love.
Yeah, I mean, you give that to a fan.
You would write, you would say all my love to like your partner. You wouldn't say all my love to a fan or
Well, you might to a fan.
if you're being disingenuous.
Yeah, but you wouldn't say it to someone who you work with.
Yeah, no, that's weird.
I mean, there's also a very innocent looking picture.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing to suggest anything untoward here at all.
No.
But Rachel does look very upset about it.
She's an anxious type, certainly.
She has things to think about, yeah.
We're out in the street.
Juno's leaving the theatre now, and she's offered I think she offered a lift.
Is she?
Or at least she speaks to somebody in a car.
Can't remember that.
I think it's
no.
Angus.
No, we
in his
see.
car.
Yeah, she's not offered a lift. We
No.
see that this is one of the reasons why I don't agree necessarily with yourself, because we see creepy Angus being creepy again, watching her from his car.
Is he watching her?
Yeah.
Or is he just sitting in his car?
Why would he be sitting in his car?
Maybe he's waiting for something.
What?
Who knows?
I know. He's being creepy.
I don't think so.
Well, why is he sitting in his car
Maybe he
watching
just
her?
doesn't want to go home because he knows there's going to be hassle at home.
You have to make that clear, because when you insinuate this and you see him outside watching her, like the way it's been cut, then you have to assume that unless told otherwise.
I think he would blame the edit.
I'm sure.
Anyway,
She's a bit unsettled.
yeah. And she walks away and bumps into somebody else.
Yeah, yes, things take a very dramatic turn when Rachel appears in front of her and things get out of hand quickly.
Yeah, she says she's got a present for her and stabs her in the side.
Yeah, and as Juno drops to the ground bleeding, her assailant seems to realise what she has done and starts to panic and tries to help her. But Angus runs over, so he's been watching this whole thing.
Has he?
Yes. How did he arrive there? How does he know what's
Why
going
would
on?
he watch? Why would he watch and not come over much quicker?
Because he's worried. If he's only got to run over there. What if nothing
I
happens?
think
Why would you?
he's gone from where he was sitting. He started to drive off, and then seen this as he's driving by.
No,
And
he's
he's
a
got out his car and said, "What on earth is going on here?"
creepy Angus.
He's not watching her.
He is.
He's not.
He clearly is.
I don't
Because
think
he's
he is.
within seconds of her being stabbed, he's by her side and telling his wife to disappear.
Yeah, she's just stabbed somebody. He's trying to protect Rachel.
These are the actions of someone who's not mentally well themselves. Now, Rachel, we could understand. But at this point, you don't take the victim back home and hope that they don't see anything.
Yeah, no, that's a odd behaviour. Again, I think he's trying to help Rachel, but it's a bad decision.
Whilst they drive home, we head over to Sharon's house.
Yeah, they're at the dinner table. It all seems to have settled down a little bit, but then we see Ripley carving R.I.P. into the wall. That's not great.
No. What does Sharon say?
She says she's probably carving her name, but
Yeah.
she stops her, and at this point Ridley arrives back.
Yes, and does a fantastically terrible impersonation of Sherlock Holmes.
So, I see you're just back from Reykjavik, both of you. Hope you had an enjoyable flight.
I beg your pardon?
Reykjavik? You never said. You see, this is what he does. How? I have absolutely no idea.
Oh, come on. You make me sound like some kind of sorcerer. When, as Jonathan knows, there's no trick to the art of simple observation. The abrasions around the side of your neck, quite recent, quite deep, and quite nasty. Something feral at work. If not feral, then certainly not happy. A pet, perhaps? Provoked or antagonised or traumatised? In your bag, a diary entry largely obscured for yesterday. A visit somewhere, to a cemetery, a monastery, a presbytery. The name, Zelda, a touch too exotic, more plausibly feline, a cattery then. But boarding or collecting, allow room for Zelda. Where? In a car full of bags? Returning from the airport, surely. Why drop a cat off more than 24 hours before departure? And a week or two in a kennel would explain the feisty behaviour. The watch on your wrist, still set for a previous time zone, is 1 hour behind, which leaves us only Iceland or Northwest Africa. Yet no discernible suntans, and that faint reddening of the left eyelid. What else but a biting Arctic wind? So you see.
The editing on this, and I think I saw a quote from Alan Davis as well, suggests that David Renwick is expressing his general disdain of Stephen Moffat's Sherlock series.
Now, are you sure a disdain? Because that would be quite a brass neck.
Especially when they've borrowed from this. I'm not quoting word for word there, but the way that this presentation was done is very similar to the way that Sherlock's deductions are presented on that show.
Of course, it's obviously a pastiche of that show, but I would assume that it would have been a...
Maybe disdain's too much. I think he sees it in the same light. We saw the digs at Mr. Bean in earlier seasons. I think it's the same sort of thing. I don't think it's a homage in any way. I think it's a critical
Sherlock,
pastiche.
one of the most highly regarded shows of the century.
Yeah.
This stage in Jonathan Creek, you don't really want to be having a go at Sherlock.
Well,
You don't have the right to have a go.
I read an article which was written around the time that this came out, which said this explains why. No, this doesn't explain why. This it's easy to see why Sherlock has come to an end fairly quickly, and Creek is still going after 20 years.
Disagree with that.
Well, I'm just saying these are opinions that are out there. People think these things.
In any case, I think this is one of the highlights of the episode.
Ridley's deduction.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was quite entertaining.
He's a good character, and in fact, I'd have been happy to see him as an occasional sidekick.
Yeah. It would be better if he wasn't always wrong, like if he occasionally did get things right, or if he got better over time.
Yeah, The Apprentice. And in fact, he could have eventually taken over.
He could have done. He's
Yeah.
not doing anything else.
No, I'll get to that.
Yeah.
The hilarity, however, is short-lived as Sharon gets a text message. Firstly, this message delivered by text, telling her that her dad is dead.
Who's the text from?
I don't know, but no one should be giving you that news by text.
No.
She's obviously distraught, but there's sort of good news.
Yeah, he's not dead.
No,
It's
he's not.
her phone.
No, she picked up Polly's by mistake.
She's inappropriately relieved.
Yes, being a terrible person, Sharon doesn't let this mask her sudden delight.
Yes, so she's glad that her father's alive, but completely fails to take into account that the fact that she's just told Polly her own father's dead.
Yeah, I mean, for a good 30 seconds, she's fist pumping and all that type of thing.
Yeah, sliding on her knees around the kitchen.
Getting high fives from everyone.
Yeah.
And I think, in fairness as well, I enjoyed this bleak black humour of Jonathan Creek.
Yes.
We head back over to the Angus household.
In the Angus and Rachel house, Angus explains to Juno a little bit about what's been going on.
Yes, as he is cleaning her up and trying to patch things together down there.
Yeah, I think it's very good of Juno not to be making much more of a fuss.
Yeah, what happened is, okay, so what's been going on?
Okay, Angus and Rachel had a child that died. And since the death of the child, Rachel's mental health has been poor. She's been struggling.
Yeah.
And acting irrationally. So this is what I was meaning when I was saying she's imagining this attraction between Angus and Juno. I mean, maybe he does fancy her or something, but I don't think he's obsessed the way that Rachel thinks he is. I think this is part of her mental health problems. She's seeing something much bigger than it is.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to accept that she's exaggerating and she's not acting appropriately. However, I disagree that there's nothing going on there. I think maybe he does quite fancy her.
Maybe. Or maybe...
Which is understandable. She's a very good-looking woman, so why would...
Maybe he imagines, wouldn't it be great to have a girlfriend that wasn't mentally ill and is such a nightmare for me to look after at this stage. So maybe he's struggling with that aspect of it because it would be hard. But I don't think he would ever do anything. For the way you see him with Rachel, I think he is utterly committed to looking after her.
Oh, yes, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, to be fair, Angus, it's not up to Angus doing something. I don't think Juno is interested in any way, so there isn't a relationship. But I think, yes, that perhaps he is... it's not just the physical, as you said, they're not just the physical nature of it. I think perhaps he is fantasising about a normal relationship in this time of emotional distress.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's one of his ways of coping with the whole situation as well.
Mm-hmm. In
any event, Juno appears quite sympathetic, but obviously still in some pain.
Yeah, I mean, it is understandable. Like, as you know, as parents, you can imagine the devastation it would cause, and I can understand how you could have a mental breakdown very easily. On the other hand, I'm thinking, you know, if that was me, if I was stabbed, would I
care?
Yeah.
I mean, you can care without thinking it was okay to get you stabbed.
Yeah.
I mean, Rachel at this point starts to break down again, saying she doesn't mean to hurt anybody, but it's quite a stabby way to go about that.
I think that's the thing to consider. It's not just necessarily Juno making the decision based on what's happened to her. Rachel is demonstrably a danger to other people and potentially herself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that if the truth comes out, you wouldn't necessarily be going to jail for a typical stabbing. You may well be sectioned and treated appropriately. So it's probably the best way to deal with it.
The sympathy of the victim.
Yeah.
We get a funny little scene at the Undertaker's next, where Polly and Jonathan are viewing the body of Polly's father.
Yeah, this was another one of the high points in the episode. We see Mr. Partridge. He is the Undertaker.
Yeah, he's a dab hand with the rouge.
Yeah, but Polly wonders if they can make her father look a little bit less sad.
Yeah. And the Undertaker then goes on to pry into their private business. He asks, first of all, how long it's been since her mother died. Yeah,
we find out that it's been 11 years. He doesn't think it's been that long, but she points this out.
And then he wants to know exactly what they're planning to do with the house.
Yeah, I thought that was inappropriate.
Absolutely. I mean, I understand from a writing point of view, they're trying to get this thread. You know, first of all, you had Polly telling Sharon they're thinking of moving. And here's, what will you do with the house? But it's an inappropriate thing to say. It's not as inappropriate as the joke he's about to make.
Tell me.
So Polly is stressing and says, why is everything so hard? And he says, rigor mortis, I think you'll find. Which is funny, but Polly's dumbfounded that he would make a joke. Even Jonathan looks a little nonplussed. But he of the inappropriate comments.
I think you've got the whole Ridley, Ripley, Sharon B plot, and you have this here. I think there's so much that's positive about this episode. It's just the core mystery is pretty dreadful.
Well, it's not even a core mystery. The episode's not even named after the main mystery.
Yeah, so there isn't a mystery. That's the point.
Over at the family home, I don't know what their surname was. It's written somewhere. But...
Is it? I just call it the Polly family home at the moment.
Okay. Polly and Jonathan arrive by car. He obviously still hasn't learned to drive despite his reboot. It's a nice house. It kind of almost looks painted. The way that it stands up there. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's impressive. They're arm in arm. And she emotionally asks him how a house can die.
Yeah, and I was shocked. He seems to display tact.
Yeah.
And some sort of emotional growth.
Mm-hmm.
When he says it doesn't have to die and it can be whatever they put into it. And it's not the last time in this episode he shows a little bit of development.
Yeah, I've noted that myself. There's a tenderness and a lovingness there that in the past, I suppose now it's his wife.
Yeah. With
these other relationships, it was, on and off flings. Yeah. It is some character development.
Back to the theatre, we get a scene that features some heavy-duty soap opera style acting.
Okay, I think we're in the prop room or the makeup room.
I think. Daryl is outraged that Juno won't go to either the hospital or the police, but he knows a person who can stitch a wound.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He suggests that Rachel should be locked up, but Juno persuades him otherwise.
Yeah, she wants to protect Rachel, but she needs some kind of prosthetic to cover up this gaping hole in her side that's exhibited during the show.
Yes, and he thinks he has something that had previously, or does she remind him of something that he previously used for a
silicone wrap?
Yeah, for a cesarean scar. Back over to the Polly household. Jonathan finds a copy of a local newspaper with an article about Polly's mother in it that was kept for her father.
Yeah, Polly's sad that it's got a bit of a coffee ring around her mother's face, but Jonathan thinks it has the look of a halo.
Again, it's a very nice thing to say, and you wouldn't have expected Jonathan to come up with that.
And Polly notes her dad always thought that her mum was a saint, and again foreshadowing a little bit here.
They also find a picture of Polly as a kid.
They do, with her imaginary friend Ores.
Yes.
Her mother named the imaginary friend. She had a thing for playing with words.
In the theatre.
Yep, Juno, a little bit off key tonight, but she gets through the performance.
Understandable, she's got an impressive gash.
She does, and she makes her way off stage, but she's shunted into a stair that's sitting there and right on the sore part.
Yeah.
She doubles over in pain briefly and then heads off to her dressing room, where she's visited by Zelda while she's wandering around unnecessarily in her underwear.
Yeah, this is David Rennick at it again.
Yeah, there's no reason why she couldn't have put the towel on before answering the door.
Oh, and it gets worse or better later on.
We'll see.
Yeah, Zelda's there. She drops off some programmes, I think, that she wants to have
signed for some theatre kids.
Yep, along with a post-it note that falls to the floor.
I don't think... Do we ever find out what's on the post-it note?
No, I think it was just a tool to...
Get to bend over.
Yep, you're thinking like David Rennick now.
Ah, what? Anyway.
So, in the dressing room, after locking her door, she winces in pain whilst picking this up, and we see her remove the prosthetic, and she's a bloody mess.
Well, the blood pours out.
It's a terrible injury, actually.
She's struggling quite significantly here. She flushes the gauze that was on the wound down the toilet, so that won't be evidence for anything. Slips on the blood on the floor and falls.
Yeah, she shouts as she falls.
Yes, and Zelda and another colleague burst through the door and find her, and they call for an ambulance and the police. Daryl, trying to act all innocent, says, "What's happened?" And Zelda says, "It's an impossible crime."
Yeah, she's been stabbed, but they would all have seen someone come out of the room, so what's going on here?
Yeah, it's impossible for sure. Back at the Undertaker's.
Yeah, it's the day of the service, but it looks like Mr. Partridge has went a little bit too far in cheering up Polly's dad.
Jonathan refers to the silent classic, The Man Who Laughs.
Yeah. And
we see this inane grin on the face of the corpse. Oh dear. Partridge is kind of lurking behind them, doesn't say much. We get a brief exterior of the church for the funeral where the mourners mingle, and then we think we're back to the house.
We are. After the service, the mourners have gathered, and Polly introduces Jonathan to, is it her auntie?
It's not really her auntie, it's her mum's friend.
Yeah.
She calls her auntie.
Auntie Hazel, who tries to offer Polly some hope through pictures of angels and a website address that she writes out for her.
Garbage.
Utter garbage and other such nonsense, yeah.
Hazel's mother has also just recently died, so that's where she's had this inspiration from.
Yeah. Jonathan then takes a call from Zelda that doesn't go down too well with Polly, but sounds like an opportunity for Sharon and her boy. Yeah,
no, Polly's almost... I'm not sure what the right word would be. I don't think she's too surprised to learn that an impossible crime has taken place.
Yeah. Now, this is where Jonathan reverts to type. It doesn't matter about these intriguing puzzles and crimes.
Yeah, so his father-in-law's funeral.
Yeah.
He should be staying there and
with his wife for many, many weeks until she is reasonably recovered.
Yeah, but he doesn't.
He doesn't know, and not just that, he brings her along.
Maybe he's trying to keep her mind on other things.
What, murder, death?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other people's death. Over at the theatre, Zelda explains to both Ridley and Jonathan what she knows, and they examine the dressing room.
I think she firstly says it's probably a crazed fan.
Yeah.
But, yeah, inside the dressing room, Ridley is very quickly down to his Sherlockian inspections. Yeah,
we get a brief interlude before he gives his thoughts where we see Polly tending the garden at the house, and Hazel comes over, something shocking has happened to her. But
yes, I think Polly says, "You look like you've seen a ghost," and we cut at that point back to the theatre, the dressing room.
Yeah, Ridley solved the crime already.
Yeah, Jonathan is watching on, nonplussed, eating an orange.
Yeah, but did you like Ridley's description of the killer?
Tell me.
It's an older lover And he's early 50s, tall, with long arms, big hands, good in bed. Some kind of monkey man.
And I think that he suggests that he must have escaped through a small window.
No, I don't think he has an answer for how he escaped yet, does he?
Well, I think that's the only way, because they confirmed that he couldn't have come out through the door. So he leaves, I think, to go and check outside
to make sure if that's possible. And Zelda at this point points out all the flaws that were very apparent in his reasoning.
Jonathan agrees and nods. A little smirk there.
What do we know, he says.
Yeah. Later that night, back at Polly's family home.
Yeah, Polly's telling Jonathan that the next day she's going to go through her dad's clothes. And then she starts rubbing his neck as if he's had a hard day.
Yeah.
This is outrageous. It's the day of her father's funeral, and she's trying to make him feel better.
Exactly. And she recalls her encounter with Auntie Hazel.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to tell you this, but while you were there, I had another visit from our friend Hazel. And if you thought those photographs took the biscuit, it's like she had this weird story she absolutely swears is true. You remember last week she told us her mother died? 86, apparently, but still had her own house. And after she left here yesterday, she went up to the crematorium to collect the ashes, took them back there to scatter in the garden. Suddenly her phone rings. And they go everywhere.
Oh no.
The phone calls from her next door neighbour to say that the cat has got out of the house onto a busy main road, so in a mad panic she has to dash straight out again. A couple of hours later she comes back, ready to clear it all up. Except now they've gone. They've completely vanished from the room. And she's absolutely adamant there was nobody else in the house. It was all locked up and she was the only one with the key. There were no windows open, no drafts or breezes or anything that could have got to them. It was like, in her words, it was just as if
God must have taken her to heaven.
Jonathan being Jonathan, he's drifted off to sleep during this story, but rather than being angry, Polly's quite kind. I don't understand. It's not that I don't understand. I mean, obviously she's his wife and she cares about him and everything, but she seems very selfless in this scene.
Yeah, makes a change.
Yeah, that's why it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Next morning, whilst eating his cereal, Jonathan watches an audience member's recording of Juno's last performance. I think it must have been on YouTube or something. And asks Polly if she can spot something that's different about it.
Do you know what I thought it was?
What?
Her belly button was missing.
Ah, that'd have been good, yeah.
But it doesn't come up.
It doesn't. Should.
Yeah. Polly is less kindly this morning. She's not really in the mood for this. She's wanting to get on with the clothes, and I think she wants Jonathan to come upstairs a bit quicker than he's suggesting he will.
Yeah, so she's up there, and whilst clearing out some of these clothes, finds a handwritten letter from her mother to her father in one of his jacket pockets.
Yeah. Jonathan comes up at this stage and asks what she's found.
What has she found?
Well, she's found this letter which she says is virtually unreadable, but fortunately they can read every word.
And what does it say?
It is a letter to her father Peter from, I think it's Catherine, the name of the mother, telling him that there's a box under the third bedroom floorboard and he should find it after she's dead and destroy it without opening it.
Now, as soon as someone asks you to do that, what do?
You open the box.
You do, yeah. So she goes to get some tools in order to get the floorboards up.
Well, there's a phone ring. She goes down to answer the phone.
Ah, that's right, yes. From who?
It's Hazel.
Yeah, who wants to meet her that afternoon.
Yeah.
So back up in the bedroom, she gets a bit of a fright from Jonathan.
Yeah, she's worked out which the third floorboard in the main bedroom is, and he's gone to the third bedroom, which had one loose floorboard. Yeah. But their hands meet. Coincidentally, they're right next to each other. And
it's an odd way of looking at it from her point of view. I would never have considered the third floorboard. It would always be.
I don't know. Oh, I think the first time you hear it, whatever comes to your mind at that point might stick. Anyway, she goes through to where Jonathan is, and he finds the box.
And inside the box, what is there?
It's full of erotic love letters between.
Erotic's a bit.
Well, she says later it explains everything they did in great detail.
Okay.
So certainly love letters between Catherine and her beau Septimus, a two-year torrid 2-year affair.
Yes, and again, Jonathan realises the disturbing nature of this for Polly.
He does briefly, but then he's off looking at books.
Yeah, as she starts to vent her anger at her mother, Jonathan picks up some of these books, which are all conveniently labelled with her name.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Well, she's. That's not uncommon, I don't think. A lot of my grandmother's books had her name written inside them.
Yeah, I suppose when they're perhaps more...
It's a kind of a do not return to library
Yeah.
sort of thing. I don't understand. But certainly I think that was fairly common back in the day.
Okay, and something seemed to...
There's a wee marble going for Jonathan.
There is.
He's not going to let Polly hear that.
No. Back down in the kitchen sometime later, Jonathan returns with an orange this time, which he hopes may trigger some memories that he had when he was in the dressing room.
Yeah, we've never seen him do this before, but
Nope.
it makes sense.
It does. Certainly smells and music can transport you back to a different time.
Absolutely. I used to, when I was younger, when I would read, I would play music. And there's still songs. If I hear the song, it puts me in mind of bits out of books.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Anyway, Polly is heading out to see Hazel.
And this technique seems to have worked because as she is going, Jonathan flashes back to the name Sawjoy.
Yeah, this is the second time that Polly's had to abort her story about Hazel, or at least not been able to convey it to Jonathan. And she leaves him to his puzzle, and she's heading off to deal with hers.
Yeah. Where did he see this, Sawjoy?
On the painting in the dressing room.
Yep, an abstract work.
Over at Hazel's home,
No, I think
or Hazel's mother's home, Hazel has no knowledge of a Septimus, she says,
she claims.
and wants to hold a seance.
She hasn't explained to Polly that's why
what
she's
she's doing,
there.
yeah.
But I think it dawns on her when she draws the curtain and settles themselves down.
Yeah, I think Polly is not impressed.
You wouldn't be.
No. Yeah, it's the kind of thing that, even if you think it's all nonsense, you don't want to get involved with that sort of stuff.
And at that time,
Certainly not without consent.
and certainly not a day or so after your own father's died.
Yeah, no, it's just a bit creepy.
Very inappropriate.
I've written down that she's unsettled.
Yeah, you would be. Yeah. You're in an emotional state as well with the death and these sort of morbid thoughts going around your head when you've lost a parent.
Yeah.
We're back at her family home.
Yeah, Jonathan's Googling Sawjoy when he gets a Skype call from Ridley.
He does, who has an update and more convoluted and flawed theories.
And more half-dressed Hollyoaks actresses. Yes, his new theory is that the blow, which they previously thought to be from below, was in fact from above while she was upside down.
Yes, in her pants and bra.
Yes.
David Rennie, Ali, I need you to do this. Are you sure, David? This is, it's...
I've got leggings, I've got a vest. No, pants,
no.
bra.
If I'm doing it in my leggings, my top could slide
It's
up a little bit.
true
And
to the character. She would be in her underwear.
get upside down in your brand pants.
And Ridley thinks that while she was upside down in her underwear, somebody fired a shard of frozen blood from a crossbow through the little window. So obviously he's ruled out someone being in the room, having examined the outside.
Yeah.
He thinks he also knows who perpetrated this act.
Yeah.
So he calls Jonathan Holmes, which obviously a little bit of a nod to the master.
Yes.
But that in itself gives Jonathan a clue, and he hangs up.
He does, without much, not so much as a goodbye.
No.
Yeah, and he starts to type something.
Over at Hazel's seance, Polly is trying to leave, but Hazel feels a vibrating presence.
She does. Is it a ghost? Is it a spirit?
No, it's it's a robot Hoover.
Yeah, or vacuum cleaner, we should say.
Yeah. I've said, how can you not know about this? How could Hazel not know that her mother had this?
Yes, that's the thing. Her mother, Hazel's what, in her 60s, if we're being generous. So her mother
was 86.
Right,
She said that
86,
at the start, yeah.
These things have only been out for a few years, really. So an 80-year-old woman gets a robot vacuum cleaner and her own daughter doesn't. And this is the type of thing you would...
Well, do you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking she got one of those little magazines in the post that's got all the ModCon gadgets. So she's got a robot Hoover. She's probably got glasses with an extra magnifying glass attached to the legs, and a toaster with a little bag for doing toasties in the toaster and stuff like that.
Yeah, but you would still tell...
You would mention it.
Everyone...
Think, look at this, it's amazing. Yeah.
Next time they come round, you pull it out. Watch this.
Yeah.
Yes, this is nonsense.
Yes.
But anyway, that explains...
Mystery solved.
Yeah. How? Well, just in case anyone's not got it.
Oh, hoover up the ashes.
Yeah.
Polly takes the opportunity then to leave the seance and go somewhere a bit less spooky, a graveyard.
She does indeed. Where at the grave of her parents, she notices the nearby headstone of a Septimus Noone, who died in 1999.
Interesting.
So back...
Before we go back, can I just confirm that it's only her parents that are on that tombstone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why?
It might be relevant later.
Okay. Back to Polly's family home. We see Jonathan taking a disturbing call from Zelda.
That's like the third time you've said that in this podcast.
Is it?
Every time Zelda phones him, it's disturbing.
It's all about people dying, isn't it? Stab
Yeah.
victims.
This time, I think he's learned that Ridley's going to announce the killer on stage.
Yeah. See, when I watched it, I thought it was the announcement of death.
Right, yeah, but no, it wasn't.
No, it's worse than that.
Yes. Polly returns to the house and is outraged when Jonathan correctly guesses the answer to her mystery.
Yeah, she's very annoyed.
Yeah, well, I think she's just wanted to get one over him and he's beaten her again.
Yeah.
Or not beaten her, but at least...
But surely this, as far as we know, this is the first time she has used this type of lateral thinking or worked something out. But so surely now she can start to understand the buzz that Jonathan must get. When
She didn't. The robot hoover bumped into her. It's not like she used any lateral thinking to fix it.
Well, no, but still, she's worked out something that
She
seems to
solved
be a
the puzzle.
mystery.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe. She has on her phone...
Yes, which she shows to Jonathan and asks him to make sense of it.
On a tombstone in the churchyard, directly behind my mother's grave. I mean, it can't just be coincidence. Except that he died at least 3 years before those love letters were written.
Septimus Noone. No, I'd say that far from being a coincidence, it fits in with everything else here absolutely perfectly. Only one thing at a time, I'm afraid. I'm going to need you to run me back to the theatre, if you would. Our young friend Ridley's asked them all to assemble on stage at 6, because he wants to announce his big solution, which, as you can imagine, is completely preposterous, but arguably no more preposterous than the real solution, which, unfortunately, there's only one way to confirm now, by going back into that dressing room. So, whenever you're ready.
At this point, Polly slides open the little drawer on the desk and is shocked to find that the coffee ring has disappeared from her mother's photograph.
Yeah, I mean, are we meant to realise that ourselves at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, it's quite subtle.
It's fairly subtle, but I think you can see it.
Okay.
Over at the theatre, we heard at the top of the show Polly's protestations when Jonathan asks her to fake an injury.
Yeah, the reason for that was that there is now a cop on guard duty at the crime scene outside the dressing room door.
Not a very good cop, obviously, because Polly's fake injury allows Jonathan to get by and into the dressing room.
Yeah. Out on the stage, the male lead is complaining about their summoning, but Zelda reminds them that it may soon turn into a murder inquiry, and Ridley, apparently, is doing more than the police.
Is he though?
No.
Down the back of the cheap seats, Angus spots Rachel and doesn't want her to be there at all.
No, I think she's also heard the fact that it might soon become a murder inquiry and gets a little bit nervous.
She does.
Backstage, Jonathan has got what he wants, it would appear, and leaves the dressing room, and he and Polly head to Daryl's makeup room.
He's not one for talking.
No, he's quite snooty and less than receptive initially.
Absolutely. And Jonathan asks him how sure he is that he's made the right call in protecting somebody on this occasion.
So we're back out onto the stage, and what do we see?
Well, Ridley is introduced and starts his theory, and meanwhile we see Rachel backstage. She's climbing something.
Yeah, a ladder up to the rigging, yeah.
Back in the makeup room, Jonathan relates Juno's injury to the plot of the Yellow Room story. You know, the injury sustained prior to entering the locked room. And he explains, I don't know why he's taking time to do this to Daryl, but in any event, he explains what Sawjoy was.
Yeah, this is all through flashback.
Yep, it's a big clue that the signature was in the top left instead of the bottom right where you would expect it. It shows that the picture was rehung upside down.
Mm-hmm. Therefore, indicating that there's something behind it.
Yeah, and it actually says Holmes.
It does. This is more... David Rennick loves his wordplay.
Yeah, more than the woman in this story.
Yeah. I do enjoy it, and it can be used, you know, like the occasional episode, but it seems to be, at least 5 or 6 episodes it's played a big role.
We see in a reconstruction, everybody leaves the dressing room and Daryl shuts the door behind them and locks it. It's like, oh, that's not suspicious. No, nobody would have noticed that.
Yeah. Anyway, did we mention there, what was behind the painting?
Well, we haven't got to that yet.
Oh, have we not?
We're seeing this reconstruction. So Daryl lets them all out, locks the door, and then he goes through to the bathroom where he gets the silicone wrap, puts it behind the painting and rehangs it. And I think Jonathan recovers it. Do we see that at this stage?
Yeah,
I think
so.
we do. Daryl notes, I think he concedes essentially without saying anything. He notes that Juno is crazy, mad, but for the right reasons, and God bloody bless her, he says, governor. And that's the end of this scene. He won't tell them any more.
Yeah, he won't divulge the person that they're covering for.
No, which probably costs her life.
You would like to think.
Well, you wouldn't. You don't want her to die.
No, you wouldn't like to think.
No. Back on the stage, Ridley is going through the frozen blood arrow story.
Yeah, I mean, he's rambling on, but he's getting a little bit more accurate, I think, inadvertently. As to the motive.
Okay, yeah.
But just as he fingers the tuba player, what happens?
Rachel falls from the rafters and she's dead. She's hung herself.
She's hung herself, yeah.
I don't know where she got the rope. Probably found it up there.
Probably, yeah.
That's fortunate. She went up there and just didn't have a plan.
Nah, I think to be fair, there'll be lots of rope and that type of thing, a rigging.
Yeah, Angus runs up, everyone gathers around, but she did.
Oh yeah, I mean she is. It's not a case of that's a big drop.
Yeah,
there's no way of surviving that. Yeah,
she's gone. Polly and Jonathan at this stage come out into I think one of the boxes.
Yeah,
at the side, I don't know why, but they see this and Polly looks visibly shaken.
You would do. She's had a rough time of it.
Yeah. Next thing, we're in the car.
Yeah, and she's now less than understanding about the situation that she or they have found themselves in, or Jonathan's got them into.
Yeah, I don't know how long they've been in the car, but he's only now apologising for her having seen the suicide.
Yeah.
Said, I'm sorry you had to see that, and she wonders if she's married into the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, but Jonathan is more interested in the piece of paper containing the website address that Hazel had given Polly, and when he finds it in her bag, it appears to be the final piece in the puzzle and suggests a detour.
Yeah, they swing by, I think, Hazel's mother's home? Or is it Hazel's own home?
I think it's Hazel's own home, yeah.
I call it Hazel's own home. And where she confesses.
Yeah, it turns out that Hazel is even more of a mentalist than we already knew, and had in fact been the letter writer.
Yeah, unfortunate for Jonathan, she folds paper in a weird and unique way which allowed him to identify her.
Yes. Polly, of course, is more interested in knowing why she did it.
Why, Hazel? For what possible reason?
You don't think we argued? My head against her brick wall. And how could I refuse her anything at that stage? As soon as she knew her time was running out. Believe it or believe it not, the whole idea was to try and lessen the grief. He'd find the letters. She just had this horror, you see, of him moping about over her memory for the rest of his days. If she could somehow discredit herself in his eyes at the very end, she just thought, well, thank God it never came to anything.
That was garbage.
Terrible idea.
Yeah, are you really expecting us to believe that a loving wife would rather her husband thought that she'd been unfaithful for years so that he would feel comfortable perhaps meeting someone new?
That's ridiculous.
It's terrible.
The idea that it would be less painful for him to realise his whole life had been a lie for a number of years than to lose his wife who had been ill for some time and that he was prepared for.
It's abysmal, and you can almost understand how someone who is dying and perhaps not thinking clearly could come up with this, maybe come up with this plot. But Hazel...
It's the kind of thing you would do if you're breaking up with someone and you didn't want them to be sad about it. But not someone you've been married to for many years that you actually cared about.
Hazel should have said to her, "No, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous." Or even says to her, "Okay, I'll do that, but then don't worry."
Yeah, there's another moment of growth for Jonathan here when, for the second time in this episode, Polly's feelings are trampled all over and he recognises it and is sympathetic, because Hazel says she's glad it never came to anything, and you can see in Polly's face, like, what do you mean never came to anything? I've been distraught for weeks about this.
Yeah. And
Jonathan understands. And I don't think he would have noticed that. Like Jonathan of seasons 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing as well, and indirectly you've mentioned there, that it wouldn't just be the husband, her father, that was having the effect of these lies.
The whole family.
The whole family, including Polly, who now thinks her mother's a terrible person.
Yeah, that's not what you would want.
You wouldn't want that at all. We're back at...
Oh, this episode turns into Lord of the Rings here. We get like 6 endings.
Yeah, okay, tell me, let's wrap it up.
We're at well, I've called it the Creek House, but the Polly and Jonathan house, because I think they're going to decide to stay here. They talk about playing with words, and Jonathan goes through some of the book titles and explains Septimus Noone, Septimus Noone.
That's obvious. I think in the last podcast, I asked you how we were pronouncing it, and it wasn't because I remembered the outcome of this week. It was, as soon as I saw the word Noone, I'm thinking, is that no one or Noone? I'm not sure how to say it.
I don't even know if Noone with an E in the end of it is a name.
Don't know.
Anyway, a wee bit later on, Sharon shows up, and this is where we get confirmation that the two of them are going to be staying in the family home. Mm-hmm. Ridley's off to university, but he accepts that he has things to learn.
Which was a nice touch. Again, this character could have been played as an absolute idiot and a bit of an arse. Yeah. But you tend to like him. He's enthusiastic. He's trying. He's obviously got some sort of skills where he can pick up. He can observe things, but he's not been able to interpret them correctly. Yeah, but that could come if he works under the wings of a master.
Yeah, and we've still got one more mystery to solve, and it's Polly who fingers Sharon over the office table. And
why did she do that?
Because the coffee ring that disappeared from the photograph has a simple explanation when you think laterally. Mm-hmm. Apparently it was a partner desk, which must be a thing.
Never heard of it.
The top of it spins round, including the first drawers. And it seems that her father had kept a perfectly clean picture on his side of the desk, and that the one with the ring had been kept somewhere else, and they'd put it in the other side of the desk, not knowing. And then when it was later turned around, because Ripley had sneaked up and carved Pony Killer on the side of the desk, it had returned back to the side that had the clean photograph on it. Yeah.
Oh, we should also mention as well that we find out that Juno has made a recovery and is intending to be back on stage very shortly. So happy ending there.
Happy for them. Sharon's really embarrassed about this, and we get a little alien reference from Jonathan.
What was that?
Well, Sharon says, "You know what they say about space?" And he says, "No one can hear you scream."
Yeah.
And she says, "Make the most of it." I think she's just saying, "Don't have kids," basically.
Yeah. So, it was... there were fun parts in this episode. The supposed mystery, the actual crime, the reason why we're watching Jonathan Creek was weak, was non-existent.
I mean, that must be why the Septimus Noone was the name of the episode, because that's the one that we don't get the answer to until he figures it out. Uh-huh. Now, we mentioned earlier about the graveyard.
We did.
We were saying the name Septimus came from there. Mm-hmm. Why would we be visiting her own grave before it was there, before she was dead?
That's a very good point, yeah.
Unless they owned the plot.
Well, I think that's... Yes, you would own the plot, but you don't visit the plot.
Yeah, you don't visit the plot before you die.
No.
And you certainly wouldn't be taking cognizance of the other names and the other tombstones. And I suppose Septimus might stick in your head, but...
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I have in the past... I think I've mentioned this, actually, maybe not in this podcast, but I enjoy graveyards. From a historical point of view, you walk around, you look at some of the old dates, so maybe... If they're there, she spends a bit of time contemplating things in a graveyard and just walk by and noticed it.
I suppose being a lover of wordplay, maybe she spotted this surname and thought, oh, that could be no one.
Yeah.
And then, oh, I could trick my family into thinking I'm an evil woman. Mm-hmm. And I've betrayed them for many years.
Yeah.
That would be a great idea.
Stupid idea. So yeah, it's the worst mystery, but it's not the worst... it's not the least enjoyable episode. I mean, I think something like
Norman,
stands out as being...
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad. Uh-huh. And Spearfish didn't really enjoy.
Some folk like Spearfish.
Yeah, they do.
But even the previous episode, when it all turned to nonsense at the end, it's the same sort of idea. It's great in parts, and then other parts are not. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see them piece together a really solid one.
Yeah, if David Rennick keeps at it, you might get there in the end.
Well, there's plenty of early ones that are really good, and even in the middle. I'm being facetious. Harsh, okay.
Will we run through the production information and trivia?
No, let's not.
Okay, I'll do it anyway.
Okay.
28th of February 2014. We're fairly catching up with ourselves these days.
It's like time travel gone wrong.
A first-time director, David Sant. He was born in 1968 in Spain. This is his first of 3 Jonathan Creeks, and he is quite the television CV. He's directed Benidorm, Yonderland, The Johnny and Enel Show, Hotel Trouble, The Gym. As an actor, he has appeared in Ideal, Doctor Who 2005, Dream Team and Comedy Nation, amongst other things, and you'll have heard him probably as the voice of Pingu. Previously, he had been a mime artist, a stuntman, and a puppeteer.
Sounds like a talented man.
He does. Ali Bastian played Juno Pirelli. She was born in 1982 and is most known for Hollyoaks and The Bill, as well as Doctors and Strictly Come Dancing. She's done some stage work as well, I think Chicago and Agatha Christie's The Verdict.
Maybe it was her that was singing. We didn't actually talk about that
No.
at the start when the terrible songs were on.
Yeah, very bad. Let's hope it wasn't. Or let's hope they were mangled deliberately. Angus was played by Ross Armstrong, and you may have seen him in Ripper Street, Will, Mr. Selfridge, Doctors, or maybe DCI Banks. Rachel Cassidy played Sharon. She was born in 1968, and I have seen her in Downton Abbey. You may also have noted her from The Worst Witch, Lead Balloon, Doctor Who in 2011, Moving Wallpaper, Casualty, Teachers, or The Bill. Paula Wilcox, famous British TV face, played Hazel, Auntie Hazel. Born in 1949, she got her big break, I think, in Man About the House. Also was in The Lovers, The Liverbirds, Z-Cars, Fiddlers 3, The Queen's Nose, along with another Jonathan Creek alumni, The Smoking Room, Emmerdale, Doctors, Boomers, Mount Pleasant, and recently Upstart Crow.
You like that?
I did like it, worth a watch.
It's the modern day Blackadder,
You could say that, yeah?
but not as good.
Better than Blackadder 1. Alice O'Connell played the unfortunate Rachel. She has been in Doctor Who in 2012. Doctors, City of Vice, The Verdict, Casualty, and The Bill. What was I waiting on?
Doctors, I think, is the other one that we need. That's really
Oh,
close.
she was in Doctors.
Is that the full set?
Doctor Who, Doctors, Casualty, and The Bill.
Ah, that's bingo.
No, do we not need a soap opera? EastEnders or...
Any soap opera
Yeah.
in any of those?
I don't think so.
Ah.
And finally, young Ridley was played by Kieran Hodgson. He has been in Two Doors Down, Upstart Crow, Downton Abbey, and Charity Starts at Home. He's got a smaller CV than what I would have presumed based on this quite engaging character, but maybe he's done a lot of theatre work, or he's doing a lot of theatre work.
So you're saying he's free to come back as a sidekick?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Any trivia for us?
Well, I do, but are we doing an episode review? It's quite a tough one.
Well, partially, but I think most of it's not applicable. Motive.
For what?
The crime.
The mental health problems.
Yeah. Clues.
We saw it happen.
Well, clues for Jonathan.
Okay, the upside down painting.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's why it's a week episode. The gotcha was...
When she hung herself. Because Jonathan hadn't figured out who did it.
Yeah, so the gotcha is not...
She wasn't got.
No. And the guilt is obviously not appropriate or applicable either.
No. Excellent, that was good.
Yeah. Okay.
Trivia.
Do you
have any?
I've got one piece.
Yeah, you do your trivia first.
Okay. Gaston Leroux was a French journalist and author who wrote The Phantom of the Opera in 1910 and The Mystery of the Yellow Room in 1907. So it was a real life.
But as far as we know, not a musical.
Don't think so. And it is indeed considered to be one of the most famous locked room mysteries of all time.
Picking up on that thread, I want to talk a little bit about John Dixon Carr, also known as Carter Dixon.
Okay.
Whose novels about Sir Henry Merivale and those about Dr. Gideon Fell and the solving of impossible crimes are often pointed out as inspirations for Jonathan Creek, and I think we even get a borrowed episode title in a couple of weeks' time. In his novel The Hollow Man, Carr has Dr. Fell opine on locked room mysteries. It's chapter 17 if you don't want to read the whole book, but you should probably read the whole story. I would really suggest getting hold of a copy and reading the whole thing, but I wanted to look at one section because I thought it was interesting in how it relates to Jonathan Creek. So Fell dictates a 7-item taxonomy of locked room possibilities which occur when the killer is not in the room.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go through all 7 and let's see if we can find a Creek episode.
Well, tell you what, why don't you describe them and we'll throw it out to the listeners and see if we can, as a partnership.
Okay, get one for each.
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll come back next time and...
If anyone responds, yes.
Yeah. Somebody has. Surely someone's still listening. Okay, so number 1 in this list of 7. It's not murder, but a sequence of coincidences culminating in an accident which appears to be murder.
Okay.
Number 2, murder, but the method of murder is self-inflicted by the victim. Some kind of forced suicide or compelled action that results in their death. Number 3, murder by some kind of mechanical device or other object, so something that's gone in the room with them or that waits for them in the room, a hidden weapon or something along those lines, or a trap maybe. Number 4, a suicide, but it's made to look like a murder. Number 5, it's a murder, but the cause of death has happened prior to the victim entering the room. Number 6, murder, but committed at a distance, so from outside the room. And number 7, murder, but is not perpetrated until after the victim is discovered in the room. Okay, so those are the 7 possibilities for...
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, so if anyone can come up with any possible Jonathan Creek episodes which meet one or more of those criterions, then
yeah, let
get
us
in
know.
touch.
That'd be good to hear.
How can they get in touch?
Well, Twitter is @CreekPodcast, same on Facebook @CreekPodcast, or come to jonathancreekpodcast.com and
That's
just
probably the best place for that type of response.
Yeah, comment on the post for this episode. And if you want to get the book, I'll repeat again, it's The Hollow Man, featuring Dr. Gideon Fell by John Dixon Carr, or possibly Carter Dixon, I'm not sure which name he uses in that one. Okay.
Next time we've got The Sinner and The Sandman. Until then,
Cheerio.
bye-bye.